Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest BLS podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Devison, and today I am joined by, once again, seems to get in all these podcasts, Samuel Beeman.
Hello, fellow Simmers. How are we all doing?
And Benjamin of BLS, who is the head project manager for this Spa Valley update.
Hello.
So, this is what the podcast is all about, is the Spa Valley Railway sort of update, giving you guys a little insight of what we are getting on with. So, between the three of us, we have been working on this route. Well, me and Sam have been working on it for about a month now with Benjamin.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe a bit longer, actually.
Yeah, and Benjamin's been... How long have you been working on it for now?
Goodness, it has to be about a year now.
So, take me and Sam back, because we haven't really spoken about this all that much, really. Take us back to that first initial sort of start of the project, when you felt like you could update this, bring it up to modern day standards.
Well, it's an interesting one, really. It happens almost entirely by accident. I downloaded the route and just given it a quick run through. And if I'm honest, it was quite a nice drive. I'd noticed that the scenery looked very outdated. But because I enjoyed it driving down so much, I decided that maybe it'd be fun to have a little fiddle around with the scenery and see what I could do with it. So I started it at Erridge, did a few bits and pieces, and sort of thought to myself, well, yeah, this could turn out all right if I kept going. So I did.
And so that's when you sort of kept going on. Where did you get to before you sort of joined the BLS team, as it were? It was sort of Groombridge, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd reached Groombridge with a couple of gaps in between, but I'd done some relatively comprehensive reconstruction of part of the route up to there, and that was really as far as I'd got. Progress had stalled for a while, but I wanted to try and get it moving again, and that's when you guys noticed that I was working on it, and expressed a bit of interest in it.
And so I'll move it on to Sam. As Benjamin said, British Locomotive Studios expressed a bit of interest into it. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, basically, Benjamin was showing screenshots of this route, of his progress, of what he did so far on it in like various Discord servers. I believe one of them was the marshalling yard. He sent a few screenshots in, and I think there was it Donington Reskins? I think was another one you sent a few in. And then it came to me because obviously, as most of the people who are watching are aware, that we've been doing a lot of work on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, which was originally done by Andy Gow, and obviously we had permission to revamp that and make it look more up to modern standards, and it's been an ongoing project for years now, and it will soon be ready and it will soon be out there. But basically, when we started that route, we sort of sat there and like any developer does, sort of sits there and thinks, what do we do in the future after we've done this project? Like what should we do to look ahead? And obviously one of the things was to look into doing the extension to Whitby, which is one of the main things that we want to do with the North York Moors. And another thing was to revamp another route, and one that really did catch my eye was the Spa Valley Railway, because I thought that it is so outdated now. It was released in like 2007, 2008, just after the Isle of Wight steam railway and the Isle of Wight route was built by Just Trains. And it came to mind as a route that we really wanted to do. And to see Benjamin doing it and having started it, that's where it came to our attention to contact him and say if he needed any help or any assistance, and whether he wanted it to be released via British Locomotive Studios. And it all sort of went from that, really. And it started off as a collaboration project, and then it followed by Benjamin actually joining the team, didn't it, in the end? And that's really the story behind it. That's how it all started up.
Oh, fair enough. So, when you got with us, Benjamin, what was your first thoughts on how you could progress the route being with British Locomotive Studios? If you had any.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think when I first started on it, I'd never really done any route building or route editing like this before. So there was only so far I could go before I would sit there and go, actually, I don't have a clue with this. And actually, I've found since joining that loads of people have been able to offer sort of assistance with how to do various bits, and actually doing a couple of bits that I haven't quite been able to do yet for me, which has been great. But I've also noticed that since this project has become a little bit more public, a lot more people have been willing to donate bits and pieces to the project. So we've had new assets donated. We've had even a logo donated to the project to include with the package once it's released. So I think that's been a great help.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to those who have donated there, and that's to Will Burton and Bradley Milligan, who are the two behind the donations.
Yeah, it has really helped move the project along.
So
It is something that's exciting, and it's nice to see that people want to help out with the route. It is a nice little project going on.
Yeah, it's nice to see people interested in a very unsung route, really. It's been forgotten about in train sim, I think, for quite a while. So it's nice to see people take a bit of an interest in it.
Yeah, and I just want, before Jordan moves on with the next question, I just also want to take a thanks to Jeffrey Potter, who was the original author of this route, who actually gave Benjamin permission to revamp this route and include the assets with the route, didn't he, Benjamin?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He said that we could use the route and the assets within it to however we need, and so it's led to some quite exciting additions, which are going to come with the route, which I think are really going to set it out from what it was.
Yeah, because obviously one of the chaps from BLS, Snud/Steve, is redone the Groombridge assets as we're seeing now.
Yeah, they're now green instead of maroon, which is the right colour scheme for the station. Because originally it was maroon, but nowadays they have repainted it into the southern green to match the rest of the stations along the route. So it's nice to see that being captured in Train Simulator properly this time, because obviously that's another thing about the original route is people will want to drive the route in a more modern day, present day era. And obviously the original route was based around the early 2000s, which obviously had the marine station at Groombridge, and it had areas that were a lot different to what the route looks like today.
Yeah.
And we want to capture it to its present day form.
So in regards to that, I'm just going to throw another question towards Benjamin. obviously in this slideshow that we're showing everyone, there's a lot of images between Erridge and Groombridge and a little bit further along from Groombridge, but there's nothing really from Tunbridge Wells. Is there anything been done with Tunbridge Wells yet, or is that still very much heavily WIP?
Yeah, so Tunbridge Wells, I've done a bit of work around. I say a bit. A lot of it has been rebuilt so far. So the nearby houses around the station, they're all getting new buildings and new gardens and details within that. All the retaining walls around the station, they've been revamped and replaced with assets which are of a slightly higher quality. We've had embankments rebuilt, tree lines put back in, as well as the two sidings, actually 4 sidings just outside of Tunbridge Wells. They've been replaced and brought up to in the sort of condition that they would have been in over the past couple of years. So there is work that's been done around there, just not yet at a high enough standard to make it as per the rest of the route yet. So it's, in some aspects it is getting there, in other aspects it's still heavily work in progress.
Yeah, so there is work being done to that in a sense. There's work going on, but just not quite at the rate that we're advancing towards High Rocks at the moment. So is that the next sort of stage you want to get to, is get this section between Groombridge and High Rocks sort of completed before you really think about Tunbridge Wells?
Yeah, that's become the main focus for now, since the BLS team rebuilt the section between High Rocks and Groombridge to match the proper gradient profiles and curves. That has been the main focus, getting that scenerised. And then once we reach High Rocks, we'll look at the final section between High Rocks and Tunbridge Wells, and then fill in the gap from there.
Yeah, and I do know that there's been a few bit of work on Tunbridge Wells, because believe it or not, I did a little bit when I shouldn't have done, should I, Benjamin? But I was getting fed up of the fact that obviously we had the ground textures changed, courtesy of John Astley, to use the West Highland Line textures, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
And obviously one of the main problems is it when changing ground textures of the route, it's never perfect, and sometimes it does odd things, like for example adding cabbages in a certain yard area.
Yes, the engine shed at Tunbridge Wells became filled with cabbages.
Yes, and this was something that was really griping my gears, and me just being me, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to get rid of that because I can't stand looking at it any longer. So I got rid of the cabbages there, and I did the same for the car park as well. So I've sorted those out, so they're pretty much how they should be now. Obviously there's still a few ground textures on the route that still do need respraying and replacing, but we'll get round to that. Yeah, but that's one of the only down points with changing the ground textures, is sometimes you get some odd things happening.
But that although it's given us some slightly questionable ground textures in places, it has meant that we've got a much wider range, because that's the problem I was finding when editing the original route, is the fact that for some reason I only had 5 or 6 different ground textures available, and so getting those changed has been a great help. Really, it means we can get a bit more, better detailed fields and trackside areas into the route.
And a bit more variety. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
It was there, it just couldn't get it out.
Yeah, exactly.
So, in regards to just sort of moving away from the route itself, when the pack is fully finished, Sam, we're going to be getting some rolling stock with this, if I'm not mistaken.
We are, yes. Now, obviously, due to recent times, we have, well, the main reskinner who was doing the locomotives has taken a break from the team at the moment. And because he was going to be doing the locomotives for us, but for now has taken a break from the team to do his university work, which is completely understandable, because obviously, life, we've all got a life at the end of the day, and life takes hold. So, but obviously, we do plan on having Will Braddock do the locomotives. And obviously, if anyone else can assist him with that, then please do. That would be great if anyone in the team could assist him with that. And the locos at the moment, from what I can think of at the top of my head of what is going to be included and reskinned, are the 31, which is Sister Dora, 31430. You've got the two 33s, 33063, and I believe is it 33035? No, not 35. Oh, I can't remember the number of it. Shite. But it's is it Sea King? No, it's not Sea King. Honestly, I can't remember it. But it's the one that has this blue with the silver roof. It's that one. So if anyone knows the number for that one, it's that one. It's the blue one with the silver roof. That's basically an overhaul at the minute. And then there's also going to be a few of the long-term loan locos, as I like to put it, because a lot of the time Spa Valley have had a few locomotives over the years that have been on long-term loan. So I think it's important for those to be included. So stuff like D9537, which is the Desert Sand Class 14, the 31289 Phoenix, which was there for a good year to 2 years, and also another one to the resident fleet would be the 372. It's your favourite one, Jordan, isn't it? The one that you liked.
254.
254, yeah. So we'll have that one there as well. And then in the means of rolling stock, it's stuff like the Kate coach. So it's the Southern Railway Mark 1 diner with Kate written on the side.
Yep.
And then you've got the odd Mark 1 coach, which has blue-grey on one side and then green on the other, which is a very strange coach, to be honest, but it would be nice to have it in there. And another idea is to do the completely all-over green trailer car of the 101. So it's just completely green, no wasp stripes or anything, just completely plain green. Just it's used as an observation car on the line, basically, and we're going to be obviously modelling that as well. And apart from that, that's all I have really for rolling stock at the minute. But I'm sure that Sam Arna's going to be doing some more rolling stock, because I'm sure he has a few other ideas up his sleeve in the means of rolling stock. But that's all I can really think of in the means of the reskins that we're planning on including with the route.
Okay.
And then obviously you've got the locomotive model, which is Lady Ingrid in that maroon Spa Valley livery, which will be a nice addition as well.
Yeah.
And that's been donated to us as well, hasn't it?
Yep, that's by the Wilburton fella who he made those Andrew Barclays using the Isle of Wight saddle tank as a base for them. So obviously they require the Isle of Wight route, which, to be fair, the whole route requires the Isle of Wight route. So it doesn't matter that requires that, because if you get the route, you're going to need it anyway. So, innit?
And so I'm guessing, Benjamin, the requirements list will be released to the public nearer the time the route is nearing completion, because I presume by then you'd know what requirements you've all used and won't be adding to anymore.
Yeah, that's right. I think at this stage, it's already reached a relatively definitive list. But again, it will be released nearer the time so that people can have a chance to stock up on any bits they might need beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried where I can to use easily available freeware assets. So I've used a lot of packs from Vulcan Productions, just to make it a little more accessible to people. There are still the usual payware requirements because they generally tend to have the widest variety of assets in them. But let's put it this way, it's not as comprehensive a list as some routes would be.
Yeah, because I know of some that have literally like 2 pages worth of requirements, and it's nothing like that, is it?
No, not a patch on that.
Well, at least that's something to be for people to look forward to. Is it's not going to have that bigger requirement list, and as you say, the majority of it will be from the freeware third-party developers. Yeah, it will be.
Well, a good thing about the Spa Valley as well is a majority of the assets on the route, like the station buildings and the main like areas by the track, are all custom made by Jeff. And because he's allowed us to include those assets with the route, a majority of the stuff will come with the route. You get all like custom assets. Yeah, I mean they're a bit they're a bit on the old side, but to have Steve revamp them and getting them looking a bit better, they're really not that bad, to be honest, at all. And to be fair, I quite liked the original ones anyway. I had no issues with them, but obviously these days you get people coming along and thinking, or like newcomers to the game, like new people who haven't played the game for a certain amount of years. If they've only just come to the game and just joined, a lot of the graphics and detail has progressed since the early 2000s, but they don't really understand the concept of old assets, But, we're going to try our best we can to get them up to more modern standards. But I mean, at the end of the day, a custom asset is a custom asset. Really, you can't really just complain about it.
Yeah, it's a few less requirements.
Yeah, just be lucky to have them, because I'll tell you what, it's not easy to build custom assets or in any means.
No. So I've got another. It's going to go back to Benjamin here again. Obviously, some of these screenshots are slightly out of date to what we are today with the progression of the route. Has there been much more done with the route from these screenshots, or has it just been still adding the sort of the finer details to the section between Groombridge and High Rocks?
So at the moment, a lot of it has been adding finer details in. So going through cab ride videos, placing down the greenery and the shrubs and the trees to try and match it as close as we can. Mm-hmm. We're gradually creeping towards High Rocks, so it's moving onwards at a steady rate. But at the moment, I've just been going back through the bits that we've done, adding a few details here and there, because it could be saved to the end, but I'd much rather get those bits done now rather than have to then go through the entire route at the very end, pick it all apart and then add bits and pieces in and out. And it is also for my own personal satisfaction to have a section more or less completed. It means I can sit there, look at it and go, brilliant, that bit's more or less done. I can forget about that for now and I can move on to the next section.
So do you find, I know I do it a lot when I'm route building, do you find that even though you've got that bit done, you still go back to it and go, I could just add a little bit more to it?
Oh yeah, all the time. There's sometimes I'll just be casually watching a video or looking through some photos of something, and I'll go, I haven't included that, or I have included that, but I've just thought of an asset that would be even better.
Yeah,
I get that all the time.
Yeah,
I look at stuff and I think, there's like, for example, it could be the smallest thing, like a gradient post or something like that, and they'll be like, there's a gradient post, so I need to plonk that in there.
Yeah.
It's just silly little things.
Yeah,
You
things
just
that some
notice,
people,
isn't it?
yeah, things that some people may not even notice. Yet I sit there and go, "Oh no, I haven't got that in there." But
Yeah.
but again, it's another detail that goes into the route. And if I think about it, really, I don't think it will stop changing until the route's ready for release.
Well, of course, everything changes as things progress. As there's new DLC always coming out. There's always that one little thing that would add that little bit extra to things.
Yeah, and I found that as I get further on in the route, my skills at route building are getting better and better. And so if I go back to something, further back in the route, I'll look at it and go, "Gosh, I haven't done a very good job of that." And then I have to sit there and I'll redo it to the same sort of standard that the current bit's at. So I'm constantly going back and looking at the work that I've done and finding ways to improve it, because I've never done anything like this before. So everything I'm doing on here is learning.
So in hindsight, this route almost could tell the story of your route building progression, as it were.
Yeah.
So you can start at Erridge, and then you'll work your way through your timeline of learning how to route build.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially before I let the team loose on the area around Erridge, you could definitely see a progression in my route building skills, and I hope that they are at a good enough standard at the moment to be to make a route look as close to real life as it possibly can. And of course, that's been helped by joining the team. But it's nice to see that progression.
Of course, and as it is, it's nice to see people come along and produce things like this. And like I say, for your first route, it is, well, it's leaps and bounds from the first original release of Spa Valley. Yes, okay, we're talking quite a few years in between, but you're still taking something, more or less, stripping away a lot of the 2D and the assets and adding in the more modern stuff, which is you're basically being given almost a blank sheet.
Yeah, I've been given a guide by the old route, but a lot of it has just been stripped completely out because a lot of it is very old, and you can't necessarily build routes that are up to current standards with really, really old assets. There have to be new assets included to make it look nice, and that doesn't go to say that all of the original stuff has completely gone, because I've actually found that mixing some of the older assets with the newer assets helps give it a little bit more depth and a little bit more variety. So there's still bits of the old route there. There's just been a lot of new things that have replaced old assets, and a lot of new things that have gone over the top of old assets as well, just to give it a bit more interest as you drive along.
That's all it's about, really, isn't it? It's just giving people that bit of, like you say, depth and perspective of the route as it would be from real life, as close as can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is just driving along it does feel and look like the Spa Valley. Just by driving along on a 73, I felt like it was the real place, and that's what you want to give to people. You want them to feel like they're driving along that specific railway, to have that experience.
Yeah.
I mean, there is obviously aspects of this route that are not going to be 100%, and we did go over this on the previous podcast on the route updates that we did, wasn't it, Jordan, in episode 2? I think it was.
Last month.
Yeah, last month. And obviously, because this route was built pre-Google Maps, the geezer who built it, Jeff, had to use, I believe it's tiling, isn't it? I believe you said he had to use
Yeah,
tile.
it's something like that. It's where you take a Google Maps section of a tile, you place it down in the tiles on the TS.
Yeah, and even to do it like that, I mean, the guy got it spot on from like Tunbridge Wells to High Rocks. It was all pretty much bang on the money in the means of Google Maps placement. The only two areas we had issues with was the area of the fields in between Groombridge and High Rocks, which we've had to, in a sense, completely rip out, haven't we, Jordan?
Yeah.
And relay the track because it was that far out that it just we couldn't handle that. We couldn't have that, could we? So we had to relay the track there to make it accurate to real life. And then the other area, which is slightly out, is Erich. But the trouble is, we can't edit Erich. We can't rip it out because it will just take too much time. You know, all the buildings and all the fields are technically slightly too far to the left or the right on the Google Maps. So it's all pretty much just that little bit out. And there's nothing that really any of us can really do about it without starting a fresh blank canvas in that area. And it's not worth it. And to be honest, you wouldn't even notice it was out because it's got to that point now where we've detailed it up very nicely and it looks and feels like Erich. So when you drive along it, you wouldn't even notice it. But if you're obviously a volunteer or someone who knows the route very well, you are going to slightly notice it because you will notice that the platform one side, which is the main platform where the mainline trains come in, actually is a little bit too far out. And the car park is actually supposed to be further out than the platform. So it's supposed to be longer than the platform, as it were. But the platform is actually longer than the car park. So it's a little bit back to front, but that's only because the station is a little bit far forward on the map than it should be. Whereas if it was moved back slightly, it would be bang on. But it's just tiny little things, and you know, it is what it is. But it is as close as we can get it. And to be honest, I am proud of it, even though it is slightly out in a sense.
At the end of the day, it's got to be feasible to I say this with relative caution. Doing that was, relatively simple because there isn't much scenery around in that section, or there wasn't much when we got to it.
No, but it's mostly open.
Yeah,
it's mostly open. Yeah. It's an easy fix. It was an easy fix.
Yeah,
whereas something as expensive as Erich, it's a
if you go to Erich, you've got houses in the way, you've got bridges, you've got undulations in the grounds that wouldn't necessarily fit if you moved all of the track work around. So it wouldn't be feasible to do that.
No, but as I say, that is the whole route when it's released is going to be on point from Tunbridge Wells all the way down to Groombridge. It's going to be on point. The only area that's going to be slightly out is in the Erich station bit, the station area in Erich, very slightly out, but it's only by a little smidge. It's not even far out, if that makes sense. It's only very slightly, but we can't really do much about that. So we're just going to have to sort of grin and bear it, really, unless it's unless it's a completely new route, completely. But but you've got to remember, guys, this was built pre-Google Maps, and to have it basically a majority of the route completely spot on, apart from that Erich bit, it's quite outstanding, really.
So I'm guessing moving on to the sort of the final little bit I want to talk about with you, Benjamin, is the next stage of the route build between sort of Tunbridge Wells and High Rocks. Have you got any sort of ideas on to put your own little twist on bits and pieces, or are you just going to try and keep it as accurate as you can, or are you just going to try and put in a few little cameos, as it were?
I think, again, I'm not too sure yet, because I take each section as it comes. So really, I haven't started thinking much about the next section. But I think I will try and keep it more or less at the same standard that the current section between Groombridge and High Rocks is going to be at. I think I've reached a point where I'm happy with what I can do, so I'm going to mirror that for the rest of it. You know, there will probably be some interesting scenes along the way, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Nothing that you'd go past and you'd think, oh goodness, why is that happening on the Spa Valley Railway? It would be interesting, but with the strong impression of realism as well. That's the stance I'm taking for it.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of trying to go with, is that you're just going to add, especially like to, how can I put it, sort of like in the gardens around Tunbridge Wells, obviously you can look down into places like that, and you can obviously see into the gardens. You're just going to put in, obviously, all the little details into the gardens. Is that sort of a thing you're going to look at doing?
Yeah, and that's actually one thing that I had been working on before we started making really good progress with the section we're currently on. So to do those gardens, I was looking at what you could see from Google Earth and mirroring that in a way. So I found that looking at the Google Earth footage, they're not gardens as such. They're more sort of working yards. So when you look down from the sheds there, you'll see cars parked around the back. You'll see, you know, overgrown lawns. You'll see garages. You'll see bits of clutter dotted around, and some of it will be more or less placed as you'd see it on Google Earth. It's how I wanted to take that section, because it's quite important. You know, it's quite visible, and so I wanted it to be interesting and accurate at the same time.
Of course.
So, you know, the detail is key, and I think that with this route, and I think that when people do get this route, they will look at the detail and they'll think, yep, that is the Spa Valley. And that's exactly what we want people to think. We want people to drive along the route and be like, yep, this is the Spa Valley. It looks and feels like the Spa Valley. All the gradients feel correct. It's a very nice drive, and that's what we want to do. We want to create that experience for everybody.
Yeah, and as Sam said, that's what we're going for. And if it looks like the Spa Valley and feels like the Spa Valley once it's all done, I think we've done a good job.
Well, most
Can
definitely.
you go to the previous photo there, Jordan, or can you go back one?
I probably won't be able to. It'll skip through to a random
Oh,
picture.
right, okay, because it would have been nice to talk about that shack there at Groombridge, which was originally a closed shed, wasn't it? And then Steve textured the windows on there and the blackboards, because in real life that is actually like a ticket booth for Groombridge, or it's either a ticket booth or a little tea room.
I think it's like a snack room in a sense, sort of like a little tea and coffee.
Yeah,
area.
but I say, you know, on the original asset, it was just a closed, boarded up shack, and we felt that, well, when the railway is open, that wouldn't be boarded up. The only time that would be boarded up is if the railway was closed, or, you know, or it's finished up the day's work and they've put the board over the windows, you know. So you wouldn't see it closed up when you're driving trains on the railway. That's why we got rid of that boarded up texture and just put it as what it is and what you can see when the trains are operating.
And it's little details like that which will make it interesting to to look round, away from the cab of the train. You can go up to it and go, oh, that's nice, and that's the sort of reaction you want, is for people to zip round just outside of the cab and look at things and go, oh yeah, that's nice, and then move on to the next bit.
You can see the boarded up building there. That was before it was painted on, textured on the front of it. It was just boards, and then Steve put the actual, windows and interior on there, which is very clever. And as I say, it is very clever what Steve has managed to achieve to the assets on the route, because I know that they were outdated now, and a lot of them had a problem with a very light glow. So it was like glowing like nuclear, and it would be right in your face, like really bright and overly bright, and it needed toning down, and it was a problem in the coding of the assets. Apparently it's a common problem, according to Steve, especially on the older assets. They have like a texture problem, and they glow very bright, and he's managed to achieve it and stop it from glowing, so it looks better, and it has more depth. You can see the detail more, and it's nice to see these old assets being revamped. And I hope that that the original route author of this route actually downloads this version and gives it all a go and has a look at it, and I hope he likes it. It'll be nice for him to see his work progress into the modern world, because at the end of the day, this is his route. It's, yes, we are revamping it, yes, we're making a new version of it in a sense, but at the end of the day, it is still his route, and his name comes first on the route because he is the main author of this route. And it's just great that he has given us the permission and has allowed us to do all these things to his old route, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely is.
Yeah, and I think obviously one of the things he did say to you, Ben, wasn't it? He said he did have plans to revamp his old route and do what we're doing here, but he just couldn't find the time. He just can't find the time to do it.
Yeah. So the impression I got from the reply was that he was quite pleased that someone was taking it on to bring it up to modern standards.
Yeah, and it's just also another thing, it's just a disclaimer for those who do end up downloading this new version of the route. Obviously, Jeff's assets do come with this route, but there is a catch on it. Basically, the revamped textures are revamping Jeff's original assets. So this does mean if you do have the original UK Train Sim version installed, and then you install our version, it will replace the original assets with the new textures, because they are not reskins, they are texture revamps, and they replace the original textures files. So it's just a disclaimer that will happen. And obviously it happens the other way round as well. If you have our version of the route and then you install the UKTS one with the assets, it will then replace our revamped building textures to the older UKTS ones. So I suppose in a way you could, if you wanted to run the route in the early days, say, early 2000s, you could just, install the UKTS buildings. However, if you want to run the route in a modern day sense, you could use the revamp textures, which it's made me decide that maybe I should add 2 different versions of the custom assets made by Jeff. One that is the original files in one folder, and then another is the revamped files in another folder. Therefore, anyone who downloads the route has the choice whether to go with the original UKTS buildings or the revamped UKTS buildings. They get a little bit of a choice there. Do you reckon that's quite a good idea, guys?
It's not a bad shout, really.
Yeah.
Because
I think
then, users have the choice of, if they want to backdate the route, they can use the original UKTS buildings. All they'll have to do is just replace the folder. And then if they want to use it in modern day, present day era, just replace it with the revamped versions to, and then it switches the eras of the route.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
I think that's a cracking idea. That's a good idea I've come up with there, isn't it?
And just to add on to that, to you guys, all the disclaimers and all the how-to installs will be included in the manual once it is finished and released.
Yeah, we will make sure that there is a comprehensive manual with it.
Most certainly. So, I'm coming to the end of my questioning from you guys. Do you guys have anything else to add to it? Just before we end?
I think we've covered we've covered the origins. We know how it started, haven't we? We covered that. We covered the reskins of rolling stock. We covered the current progress of what we've done, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've also covered the updates on the textures of the buildings and all the custom assets which were made by Jeff. We've covered the people involved and who have obviously done the donations, people like Bradley and Wilburton, and obviously we've covered a thank you to Jeff for making all this happen. I think we have pretty much covered everything we need to cover.
Yeah.
Although I could speak about that crossing there, which was just popped up, and it happens to have changed the image as soon as I start talking about it, which is as per usual in these podcasts. Pope Crossing. That's been completely rebuilt, actually, because originally it was using basic crossing boards from Bath and Templecombe with a mixture of gates. The wooden gates that were on the original route have been removed. They were custom assets, but I've had to remove them. Reason being is because nowadays, in the present day world, they have replaced them with metal gates now, so I've put the appropriate metal gates in place instead. And then I just constructed the crossing boards again using a couple of, I think they were Woodhead crossing boards. Don't get me wrong, I think they were Woodhead ones, or either Woodhead ones or they were AP Wherry Lines ones. I cannot remember. It's one of those two, but that obviously, again, those two routes will also be a requirement for it. So do make sure you have them. I sort of kit bashed it and added a rusty set of rails on one side because it's actually a double track crossing, even though it's on a single track. It's got two tracks in there, which is quite unique with that, to be honest. So I've added that in there. And obviously you've got all the signage around it as well. Those signs actually do need attention because at the moment you can't read them. You can see the words, but they're very blurry words. Steve is still yet to do them signs. He's going to revamp those and retype the writing on it so it's clear for people to see instead of just being a old blurry texture. But so in the means of the crossing, it was completely rebuilt. And I think as well as Jordan, you did a little bit of leveling work with the ground because on the left side of the crossing, it has more of a dip downwards, doesn't it? And then the right side is pretty much level to the track, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just a bit of terrain work to it. Again, it's probably not 100% accurate, but it's the best at what I could see from videos, as it were.
Yeah, see them. Yeah. It's pretty, to be honest, if I'm going to be brutally honest, I sat down there, I watched a train go over it in a place where usually people will have their tripods and film from, and it looked pretty damn spot on from that view. So, and to be honest, I don't think you could get it much more spot on than what it is without without actually mucking the whole thing up. So it is pretty good. Let's put it that way. And I think people will be impressed with Poke Crossing because it's quite a good spot, and it's a spot that needs to be attended to because a lot of train spotters go down there to film and take photos of the trains passing. So it's important that we got that one right, and I think we have got that pretty much spot on.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just think I felt it needed a complete rebuild of the crossing because it just wasn't right. I think it was like 90 degrees the wrong way or something on the original crossing, wasn't it, Jordan, or something like that?
Yeah, it was quite a way out. It was pointing the wrong way in a sense.
Yeah, so it needed a rebuild, and that's, as you see it in that image there, look, that's what it is now.
Yeah. And that's just one thing I've just thought of to add on to that about the track work. All of the track has been changed by hand, so there's been no swapping of any files within the core of the route. It's all been redone by hand because there have been a lot of changes on the Spa Valley since the original route was released, and so I felt I wanted to replicate those without having to go through all of the effort of swapping the tracks out and through the core file structure and doing it that way. So all of the track has been just redone from scratch by hand. Take up the old piece, put in the new piece, and that's allowed me to make changes that that you can see on the current route.
Yeah, because a lot of it was quite. It wasn't right. Well, I mean, it might have been right a few years ago, but it wasn't right now because there was a lot of tracks at Erich which wasn't quite right. There was like too many points and stuff like that, which all needed to be taken out. Something like that, weren't it, Jordan, or something? The track work wasn't quite right at Erich originally, and that all needed to be redone. And like Ben, you've said, essentially just relayed. You couldn't just swap out the track in a bin file because there was areas of the track work which are not the same.
Yeah,
and it needed to have essentially a relay of the entire track, and that is what you've done.
Yeah, and also using the different ballast textures and sleeper types as well, just again to give that more realistic feel as you go along the route. The change from wooden to concrete sleepers and the change in ballast textures just gives that greater amount of realism that you wouldn't necessarily get with just a blanket track swap.
Yeah, so I'm guessing like you've gone through the cab ride videos and stuff like that and just like worked out where the change in all the sleepers are throughout the route and stuff like that.
Yeah. And where possible, I've tried to match up certain ballast textures. Again, it won't be absolutely perfect, but I think it's a good enough representation to more than pass on this revamp.
Yeah, it's things like that. It's if you just track swapped it to a standard track, it would just be the same track throughout the whole route, wouldn't it? And it's nice to have a bit of a mix-up and a variety. And I think as well, a big thing of this route is variety. That is one key factor within this route. We are aiming for variety. So we have a variety of different trees, bushes, grass types, track types, just to give it a more realistic feel and to give it the look that people want, because people want to have an experience of the Spa Valley. And honestly, from what I've driven so far, I think we're going to end up giving it to them, because I am proud of how far it's come and how well it is looking. As I say, it feels like the Spa Valley when I'm driving along it, and that's what we want to achieve. And I feel like we're achieving that. It feels good. It looks good. I'm impressed with it, and I can't wait to get it out. It's going to be great.
Yes. Yeah. It'll certainly be very good when it's released.
Something really to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, well, just before we end the podcast, I am going to do my little YouTube spiel, as always. So, to you guys, the viewers, 75% of you who watch these videos, who watch the podcasts, the reviews, everything on our channel, you're not subscribed. It doesn't take much just to hit that little subscribe button, and every now and then give us a thumbs up, hit that like button to show your appreciation, to show us that you are enjoying this content. We are at the moment, from recording
Don't
this,
forget the notification bell. Don't forget the bell. Got to ping the bell.
do that too. Before I got interrupted there, we are at 448 subscribers. We are getting very close to that 500 mark. Please subscribe. Like Sam says, hit that notification bell to notify you whenever we upload a new video or any new type of content. So please follow the BLS channel. So I think all that leaves me to say is thank you to Sam and Benjamin for joining us on the BLS podcast tonight.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
As always, I seem to be making a regular appearance in these podcasts.
Yeah, don't worry, viewers. Don't viewers or listeners. I will be getting rid of Sam for the next one. Don't you worry about that. I will get rid of him.
Kick him out.
Thanks a lot.
It's got to happen at some point, Sam. I'll get rid of you for one, and then you'll turn up for the next 5. How about that?
Well, yeah. Well, mind you, I won't. I probably won't be in the one discussing the peak rail because that's all entirely Jake and Will's territory. So
Yeah.
definitely one I won't be in.
There we are. One to look forward to then.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, without me.
yeah, that's the bit everyone's looking forward to.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you everyone for joining us for the BLS podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you on the next one.
Check out the socials in the description of the video. Don't forget that.
Do that as well. Everything will be linked in the description below. Good night, everybody.